And we'll now turn to our very distinguished panel and hear from our first witness. Our first witness is Phil Giudice, who is the Commissioner of the Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources. He has over 30 years of experience in the energy industry and currently serves on the boards of the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative and the Massachusetts Renewable Energy Trust. We look forward to your testimony. Whenever you're ready, please begin.
Thank you, Chairman Markey and the committee. On behalf of Governor Patrick, Secretary Bowles, all of Massachusetts, and all of the state energy offices, I thank you not only for your longstanding leadership on energy and climate matters, but for your aggressive support for the clean energy features of the recently passed stimulus package. Funding for the state energy program, the weatherization assistance program, the energy efficiency and conservation block grants, and the appliance energy rebates, among many other programs in the stimulus package, will be put to good use in Massachusetts and elsewhere around the country. In 1990, when the State Energy Efficiency Programs Improvement Act was passed, you were the chief sponsor, Chairman Markey. This has allowed the SEP programs to serve as a ready-to-use vehicle across the country for distributing a significant portion of these stimulus dollars. Every year, you have led the effort in the House of Representatives to increase funding for SEP, weatherization, and LIHEAP. These are important for Massachusetts and our country. Thank you. Further, we are proud to strongly support your recently filed Save American Energy Act, and we look forward to working with you, the committee, the Massachusetts delegation, Congress, and the administration to advance boldly federal energy and climate policies this session. If you take away only one thing from my comments today, it is this: energy efficiency is a proven, reliable, and an extremely valuable tool for building a greener energy future. It is also a tool that we can quickly deploy to reinvest in our homes, businesses, starting today in ways that will begin to turn around our economy and in the longer term will put the United States at the hub of a 21st century global clean energy economy. As Governor Patrick has said about Massachusetts, if we get clean energy right, the world will be our customer. And in the context of your consideration of federal climate legislation, it is also clear, based on our long experience in Massachusetts with efficiency programs and our short but valuable experience with carbon caps through the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, that energy efficiency is the best climate mitigation tool that we have and a powerful economic driver for our economies. I know you are well acquainted with our existing efficiency programs and policies in Massachusetts, but I want to take this opportunity to share for the record some of the lessons and provide a glimpse of the transformation that is underway in Massachusetts. Massachusetts has historically had some of the highest cost of energy in the country, but our innovative people have combined to establish us as a leader in efficiency. Our energy productivity of the state is one of the highest in the nation, with our economy generating $200 of gross state product for every million BTUs of energy consumed. The U.S. average is $116 per million BTUs consumed. Efficiency and economic growth can and do go hand in hand in Massachusetts. Massachusetts' long distinguished record investing in energy efficiency is delivering great results. We have continuously invested for over 3 decades. We collect about 1/4 of a penny for every kilowatt hour that is distributed by our regulated utilities in wide-ranging and far-reaching energy efficiency programs. Totals about $125 million a year, which is about $20 per person in the state of Massachusetts. On the U.S. total, through regulated utility programs, is spending about $2.5 billion, or about $8. So we're about 2.5 times the national average. These programs result in saving energy at a cost of about 3.6 cents a kilowatt hour and contribute to an overall savings of 8% of the kilowatt hours that we would otherwise be consuming in Massachusetts. So this is a great deal, especially when the annual cost of power from generation in the wholesale market averages 8 or more cents a kilowatt hour. But we are not resting on these accomplishments. In fact, we at this moment are in the process of transforming our energy efficiency infrastructure and our approaches. And this effort is producing remarkable results. The transformation began with Governor Patrick and our legislature's leadership to fundamentally change the equation for investing in efficiency. Instead of investing a prescribed amount of the 2.5 mils that we're collecting and getting as much energy efficiency that we could with that sum of money, we are now required by law to invest in all energy efficiency that is less expensive than supply sources. And we expect this will double, triple, or more our efficiency spending and the results that we will be getting from our efficiency programs. This transformation is largely being accelerated by investing the revenues from our participation in the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. We've had 2 auctions, and we've generated almost $30 million that are going directly into these programs in Massachusetts, and will be further turbocharged by the recently passed federal stimulus. This will mean more energy auditors, more contractors working on insulation and air sealing in homes and businesses, and improving our building stock, more plumbers and HVAC control technicians to change out the inefficient equipment and put in much more efficient. All kinds of organizations are taking charge of becoming energy leaders. As you well know, Mr. Chairman, Massachusetts is proud of its professional sports teams. And in addition to winning 6 championship banners in the last 7 years, each of our sports teams, the Red Sox and New England Patriots, are doing fantastic things from their energy consumption. So I ask you at this moment to go much bolder than we will necessarily be comfortable for. And because in the future, we will look back and wish we were taking bold steps at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Our next witness is Mr. Thomas King, who is the president of National Grid in the United States. Before joining National Grid, Mr. King spent 10 years with Pacific Gas and Electric Company, where he was chairman and CEO. We're very happy to have you with us here today, sir. Whenever you're ready, please begin.
Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Upton, and members of the committee, I want to thank you for including National Grid in this very important hearing on energy efficiency. May I first congratulate you and your congressional colleagues for your focus and success with important initiatives on energy efficiency, renewables, infrastructure such as smart grid, and other critical energy support in last week's stimulus bill. Mr. Chairman, we are also pleased with the directional approach you have introduced with initiatives that address both energy efficiency resource standard and renewable energy. There is no single solution with our overall energy policy. We need more expansive, robust energy efficiency programs. We need new sources of renewable energy, wind, solar, biomass, geothermal. We need comprehensive strategy to address our transmission infrastructure, including policies that will enable us to bring renewable energy to load centers, and we need smart grid technology and smart meters to maximize the potential of current and future energy technologies through efficiency and automation. All of these actions play a critical role in an effective national energy policy. While the national energy strategy must be multifaceted, my comments today will focus on energy efficiency. Energy efficiency uniquely addresses many of our nation's core energy issues. It is more cost-effective than building new power plants, has the potential to dramatically lower greenhouse gas emissions, and provides consumers with long-term savings on their energy bills. Let me begin with some simple facts on the cost-effectiveness of energy efficiency. Energy efficiency can cost as little as 3 cents per kilowatt hour saved, while electricity costs 6 to 12 cents per kilowatt hour. As a country, we spend about $215 billion annually on production of electricity, but we only invest $2.6 billion on energy efficiency. For natural gas, efficiency costs range $1 to $2 per 1,000 cubic foot consumed, compared to a typical market cost ranging from $6 to $8 per MCF. Yet we spend approximately $91 billion annually on natural gas and only $500 million on efficiency of natural gas. This country must take better advantage of this opportunity and prioritize energy efficiency. National Grid's experience with energy efficiency programs in Massachusetts can be a model for the rest of the country, and the successful programs include comprehensive whole house efficiency approaches, energy audits, high efficiency lighting, HVAC installation to assure efficiency, energy efficiency services to low income customers, business customer assistance to implement energy savings, and weatherization initiatives. On the gas side, the programs include high efficiency appliances, weatherization, and system controls, including automatic thermostats. I congratulate Governor Deval Patrick and the Massachusetts Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs for passing comprehensive energy legislation in Massachusetts, the 2008 Green Communities Act. This provision will allow National Grid to expand our efficiency programs by 300 to 400% over the next 5 years. National Grid, in partnership with other leading energy companies such as PG&E, DT&E, environmental groups such as the National Resource Defense Council and Environmental Defense, worked together with McKinsey & Company to look at energy efficiency. The landmark study found that the U.S. can make substantial emissions by 2030 without damaging the economy with the help of energy efficiency. The Electric Power and Research Institute recently introduced its own energy efficiency savings analysis. By analyzing the impacts of codes and standards as well as market-driven efficiency, the study shows measurable reductions in energy consumption. In addition to energy efficiency, we will need a national policy such as mandatory cap-and-trade program. As consumers bear the cost of addressing climate change in the form of higher energy prices, climate change policies must be designed to mitigate that impact. One of the most effective and transparent ways to simultaneously address consumer cost and energy efficiency is to distribute allowances to the local distribution companies with a mandate that the value be returned expeditiously to the customers to reduce their energy bills. Current state enforcement power and rigorous open reporting will ensure that all allowance values allocated to the LDCs do benefit the customers. LDCs are uniquely positioned to administer community-based energy efficiency programs because they already have the necessary experience, communication channels, marketing expertise, funding and oversight processes, and access to the place in the market to move things quickly. National Grid already has efficiency programs in place that are saving customers in New England over $250 million a year. As a result of these programs, National Grid's customers have saved more than $3.6 billion in energy costs. In 2007 alone, our gas programs saved 4.6 million thermal units and avoided 27,000 tons of CO2, and our electricity programs saved 380,000 megawatts, avoiding 218 tons of CO2. This is a total carbon emission equivalent of taking 48,000 cars off the road a year. Expansion of such programs as a result of these creates energy efficiency jobs. Energy efficiency should act as the foundation of our national energy policy, and importantly, we need to move quickly. I commend your work and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King, very much. Our next witness is Rich Wells, who is the Vice President of Energy for the Dow Chemical Company. He's a member of the Board of Directors of the Alliance to Save Energy, and in 2008 was appointed to the Michigan Climate Change Action Council by Governor Jennifer Granholm. We thank you for being with us today, sir.
Chairman Markey, Representative Upton, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to provide our views on energy efficiency and its role in the future energy and climate change policies of our country. First, I'd like to address the role energy plays for Dow. As one of the largest chemicals and plastics producers, Dow uses the equivalent of 850,000 barrels of oil every day in its global operations. Of this total, approximately half is in the United States. Energy used by Dow is converted into a wide variety of products essential to our economy and our citizens' quality of life. These products serve as building blocks for everything from pharmaceuticals, insulation, electronic materials, infrastructure, and much more. With energy being a key enabler for all of our products, it is no surprise that the volatility of energy prices over the last 6 years has had a dramatic impact on Dow. In 2002, our total annual energy and feedstock bill was $8 billion. In 2008, that number climbed to over $27 billion. Dow has an energy efficiency and conservation program which has been refined over the past 2 decades. This program, through its energy savings, has allowed us to sustain our operation despite these rising energy costs. Let me give you some examples of the impressive results from that program. We have saved over 1,600 trillion BTUs of energy since 1994, which is enough energy to power every home in California for 1 year. We have saved $8.6 billion in energy costs over the past 14 years, and these energy savings have prevented 86 million metric tons of CO2 from entering our atmosphere. Dow's efforts in energy efficiency have been recognized by the EPA, who named our company an Energy Star Partner of the Year in 2008. We have been involved in energy efficiency outreach efforts both in the U.S. and internationally, including China, Despite being a very energy-intensive company, Dow provides products that helps consumers save energy and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. In fact, the emissions avoided by use of Dow thermal insulation are 7 times greater than our total corporate emissions. As you can see, Dow is committed to energy efficiency. It's the quickest, cheapest, cleanest way to extend our nation's energy supplies and reduce carbon emissions. That is why we recommend Congress implement the following complementary policies for energy efficiency. First, strengthen building energy codes by 30% starting in 2012 and 50% by 2020. These building code improvements could save up to 6 billion metric tons of CO2 emissions by 2050. Second, implement a federal energy efficiency resource standard. Estimates show that by 2020, a federal EERS could reduce peak electrical demand by 90,000 megawatts, cut CO2 emissions by 260 million metric tons, and create 260,000 net jobs. Third, increase the payback periods on low-interest loans to industry for energy efficiency projects. These projects would improve energy efficiency within the private sector, stimulate the economy, and lower greenhouse gas emissions. And finally, re-energize the DOE Industrial Technologies Program. Strengthen the program by placing greater emphasis on early-stage R&D, as well as expanding focus on cogeneration and recycled energy. Dow supports the prompt enactment of an environmentally effective and economically sustainable cap-and-trade program. As a member of U.S. CAP, Dow supports an 80% reduction in CO2 emissions by the year 2050. However, we need to be thoughtful when designing climate policy. Too strong a price signal on carbon in the short term could accelerate fuel switching from coal to natural gas in the power generation sector. Such a movement could trigger a steep demand for natural gas, dramatically driving up prices and harming manufacturers, including Dow. Combined with other well-designed climate policy elements, complementary energy efficiency measures can lessen the impact of fuel switching under a cap-and-trade program. In conclusion, Congress should pass cap-and-trade legislation with complementary measures in order to drive energy efficiency through all phases of climate policy. If we fail to do so, we risk negative impacts and burdens on all sectors of our economy, including our manufacturing base. I thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today, and I'll be happy to answer your questions when it's appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wells, and I know about your great work. There's an interesting book that's said really good things about Dow. I'll tell you about that later. Mr. Campbell.
You need to hit that button on the.
I'm sorry. Chairman Markey and members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony on complementary policies for climate legislation. Johnson Controls is a world leader in providing energy efficiency products, technologies, and services for buildings, and we would like to share an on-the-ground view of the opportunities and barriers to energy efficiency. Some refer to energy efficiency as the fifth fuel, a new source of energy that we can tap to drive economic growth. We believe that energy efficiency should be considered the first fuel, as it saves consumers and businesses money through lower energy consumption and represents the lowest cost source of energy using technologies widely available today. In the first of 3 key points that we wish to make, we believe that a variety of complementary policies are needed to drive energy efficiency. In addition to putting a price on carbon, we support time-of-use pricing and smart grid investments to give energy users and their building management systems the information that they need to make smart decisions. We support energy efficiency resource standards, such as the legislation Representative Markey has recently introduced. Such a standard would dramatically ramp up efficiency investments while providing a path for utilities to cost-effectively decrease their overall emissions. Building codes and equipment standards represent important policy levers. We support policies to provide incentives for the purchase of the highest efficiency equipment to drive innovation and enable manufacturing scale. We also support the introduction of a system to label building performance to help better inform current and prospective building owners and ultimately increase demand for high-performance buildings. With approximately 1 billion square feet of annual new construction, establishing complementary policies to enhance energy efficiency in new buildings is an important step. But to the second of our 3 key points, these opportunities are dwarfed by the prospects of enhancing energy efficiency in the approximately 72 billion square feet of existing non-residential building stock. There are a range of barriers that prevent the raising of energy efficiency levels in existing buildings that have effectively been addressed in the public sector using an approach known as performance contracting. Performance contracting is a competitive, market-based approach to delivering energy and operational savings that leverages public funding with private investment. This programmatic approach to retrofitting buildings can combine energy efficiency and renewable energy in a single cost-effective project. The energy performance guarantees provided under these contracts ensure transparency and accountability for project outcomes, a critical element of any successful energy and climate policy. Performance contracting has been successfully applied in the public sector for over 20 years. Examples include the University of Massachusetts in Amherst, where a $42 million investment funded through public and private sources delivered $56 million in guaranteed energy and operational savings, as well as an improved learning environment for students and faculty alike. And Wyandotte Public Schools in Michigan implemented a combination of energy efficiency retrofits, technology upgrades, and solar PV installation that delivered significant savings and helped the school district become the first in Michigan to be fully certified under the EPA's Energy Star program. While performance contracting has been successful in the public sector, there are barriers to the adoption of this model in the private sector. The mismatch of incentives between property owners and tenants, the frequency of turnover in building ownership, and the requirement to use building assets as collateral to secure loans. To address this, we recommend establishing a program that would encourage large-scale deep retrofitting of privately owned commercial buildings. The program should provide incentives for efficiency improvements in the form of rebates provided to building owners or their agents in proportion to verified and sustained performance improvements, and loan guarantees to help attract capital from private sources to fund those improvements. Our third and final point is that these complementary energy efficiency policies have the potential to create a substantial wave of new green-collar jobs across the country. Developing this workforce will require a combination of public and private investment, along with the creation of certification programs to ensure that workers have the right skills and training to engineer, install, and maintain energy efficiency projects. Finally, let me note that included in my written testimony are a number of consensus recommendations from a coalition of energy efficiency organizations, including Johnson Controls, entitled Reducing the Cost of Addressing Climate Change Through Energy Efficiency. In closing, Johnson Controls believes in the need to increase the nation's focus and investment in energy efficiency. Energy efficiency must be the first priority in addressing climate change as a way of containing the cost of climate protection and creating new jobs. It is imperative as a nation that we focus on efficiency now. It has never been more important. On behalf of Johnson Controls, thank you again for the opportunity to testify.
Mr. Campbell, excuse my failure to introduce you to to the group. Mr. Campbell, who just gave us a really interesting discussion, is Vice President, General Manager of the North American Service and Global Workplace Solutions for Johnson Controls. Thank you very much. Our next witness is Dr. John Anderson, President and CEO of the Electricity Consumers Resource Council. His organization represents large industrial electricity consumers from virtually every sector of the manufacturing community. Thank you, Dr. Anderson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Upton and members of the subcommittee for the opportunity to be here today. I don't have to tell the members of this subcommittee that we are in troubled times, and these times are especially troubling for manufacturers. Speaking personally, I don't see a light at the end of this very dark tunnel in the near future. As the subcommittee in Congress debate energy policy, I urge you to think very carefully about what the proposed policies will do to the electricity cost for consumers, whether industrial consumers will be able to bear these costs, and if, instead, they will have to close additional manufacturing facilities and move to lower-cost locations. We want to avoid that situation. Which brings me to the subject of this hearing, energy efficiency. At the outset, I emphasize that ELCON does not doubt that many opportunities exist to improve energy efficiency of manufacturing processes and that such improvements would help reduce greenhouse gases. However, most large industrial facilities are beyond the point where substantial savings can be achieved with plug-and-play measures such as high-efficiency light bulbs or insulation or motors. The next level of efficiency gains are achieved when entire industrial processes are retooled or rebuilt and options are explored, such as combined heating and power. These are big-ticket items requiring very large outlays of capital over long periods of time. Further complicating this problem is the current credit crunch. The core issue is, can utility financing of energy efficiency investments compete with large industrial's own ability to raise capital on its own in normal capital markets. A question we ask consistently: are utilities better banks than banks are? And that may be a difficult question to answer today, but we don't think so. Again, I emphasize that the industrial customers are strong advocates, even activists, of cost-effective energy efficiency. Such manufacturers are in a constant quest to reduce operating costs to increase competitiveness. But at the same time, large industrial customers have historically not supported legislative or regulatory mandates for utility-implemented energy efficiencies. Such programs are both costly and not designed in a manner that would achieve maximum efficiency gains. I raise 4 other related issues that are often discussed in the context of achieving greater energy efficiency, and I address them in much more detail in my written statements. First is the energy efficiency resource standards that has been already mentioned today. ELCON has not taken a formal position on the EERS. We certainly support measures that result in the implementation of cost-effective energy efficiency. However, there are some very basic questions that any EERS would raise, and those I touch in my written comments. If an EERS is actually implemented, we strongly urge that industrial facilities be exempt, recognizing that they already have taken significant energy efficiency steps and knowing that this is not the time to layer additional cost on manufacturers. The second issue I raise is revenue decoupling, which is one that has been mentioned several times here already. The debate over the stimulus bill demonstrated the great opposition to federally mandated revenue decoupling from both small and large customers alike. We disagree with the advocates of revenue decoupling for several reasons. First, we believe that revenue decoupling disrupts and distorts the utility's core business functions to produce and deliver electricity in an efficient manner, and is not a particularly effective way of promoting energy efficiency. Moreover, there are better ways to deliver cost-effective energy efficiency, such as with a third-party entity rather than a utility. There's no basic conflict between implementation of energy efficiency through an independent third party and the loss of revenues for a utility. Second, several states have found decoupling to be a failure once policy recognizes that a cool summer or a warm winter or an economic downturn triggers increased revenues to the utility even if no efficiency gains are made. Third, we question why a regulated public utility that has been given a monopoly service territory by a state should be rewarded for implementing an efficiency program that is required by either federal or state mandates. We believe they have an obligation to serve and should be given an opportunity to recover prudently incurred costs and earn a return that reflects risks they incur, but no more. And finally, many proponents of decoupling hold California up as a poster child for energy efficiency, at least partially because decoupling advocates assert that per capita consumption of kilowatt hours in California was reduced. However, California also implemented an inverted rate structure that may have had in and of itself brought about more energy efficiency than decoupling that was implemented and then taken away and then put back. And California's very high electric rates have contributed to the tremendous loss of manufacturing in the state. It's not hard to reduce electricity consumption if you take away your manufacturing base and put people out of work. The third issue I raise is demand response, and I'm not going to go into that in detail in my oral statements, but I urge you to look at it. We think it has a tremendous potential, and it ought to be considered along with energy efficiency measure. And the fourth issue is the utilization of combined heat and power, which was mentioned at least once. Manufacturing industries have been leaders in this effort. Unfortunately, companies planning to increase their CHP production have been disappointed by a recent rulemaking process at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC. Specifically, ELCON worked with members of this subcommittee, led by Representatives Barton, Boucher, and others, in drafting compromise language, the intent of which was to continue certain incentives for combined heat and power as provided for under PURPA and until truly competitive markets were established. Unfortunately, things just didn't work out as expected. FERC's rule, in essence, discontinued those incentives for any facility operating in one of the FERC-approved RTOs or ISOs. This rule will clearly hinder CHP growth. We strongly urge Congress to either reconsider the language in EPAC 2005 to more accurately reflect congressional intent or address this issue in an oversight hearing. In conclusion, I return to where I started. Basic manufacturing in the U.S. is in terrible shape. Despite the well-intentioned stimulus package, I have seen no projections that manufacturing output will increase in the near future. Yet many in Congress and elsewhere seem intent on implementing several new and substantial energy initiatives. All have noble goals, but many will work to the detriment of industrial companies and their employees. I applaud the subcommittee for seeking to make our energy market more efficient, but I ask the subcommittee, when considering energy legislation, to examine the total impact of its proposals, including its impacts on the manufacturing sector. I urge you to consider several specific recommendations that are in my written testimony. I thank you again for the opportunity to be before you today and look forward to your questions.
Thank you. And our last witness is Mr. Brian Reichel, who's Chairman and President and CEO of Pure Choice Incorporated. Pure Choice provides building performance reporting software and helps organizations with their energy efficiency. Thank you, Mr. Reichel.
Thank you, sir. I would like to thank Chairman Markey and Ranking Member Upton and the members of the subcommittee for inviting me here today. My name is Brian Reichel. I'm president of Pure Choice, Burnsville, Minnesota. We are an Energy Star partner. I will summarize my testimony, but I ask that it be included in the record as submitted. But what I'm going to do is tell you a little bit different story today. Instead of telling you what I think we can do, I'm going to tell you what we are doing today as a small company in Minnesota. There's been talk about looking for shovel-ready projects, and we are about as shovel-ready as they go. The main reason for energy use in commercial buildings is to condition the space for human occupancy. There are approximately 5 million existing commercial buildings in the U.S. today, totaling well over 70 billion square feet. Consider then that according to the Department of Energy, about 33% of the energy used in those buildings is used specifically for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. The average cost of that is about $1.23 a square foot, or about $86 billion annually. There's been talk of increasing the energy efficient goals up to 10, 20, 30, now you hear 50%, but I ask the question, without first measuring the building for the performance of the building, how do you know that that building can even attain better energy efficiency? We need to somehow measure the performance of the building. I can achieve 100% energy efficiency in this particular building. If somebody would show me to the breaker panel, I'll shut all the switches off. However, we screw up the interior environment of this building. So there has to be a balance somehow between energy efficiency goals and our indoor air quality goals, which is the reason a lot of these codes were put into place in the first time. Pure Choice takes a bit of a different approach. We actually measure the interior performance of the building. We measure temperature and humidity and carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide and VOCs, which are basically odors and gases. I brought with me today one of our mechanical pieces. It's called the nose. The nose houses all these particular sensors on a single platform, and it's delivered every 20 seconds back to our server in Minnesota that's on a secure site. We then put it out with our building performance software, which is called PureTrack. PureTrack is a web-based data collection software that functions very much like a continuous energy audit. Essentially, we're continuously commissioning the building all the time. Every building has an operating strategy. On a continuous basis, the software checks the overall performance of the building against that particular operating strategy, and at the end of the month, we generate a report, and we tell you how efficient your building is to that particular operating strategy. I can tell you we have no customers that are 100%. We have some customers in the 15 to 20% range, and they had no idea. And on a simple basis, if you're spending $10,000 a month on energy and you're 50% efficient, that's $5,000 that you've got room to find. I'll give you an example of what we've done. We recently partnered with the federal government at the Henry Bishop Whipple building in Minneapolis. It's located at Fort Snelling. The GSA, the Department of Energy, and the Minnesota Department of Commerce were our partners on the project. We monitored the building for 1 year. The partners identified opportunities for energy savings, and we modified the operation strategy. We realized a savings in excess of 20% in 1 year without compromising indoor air quality and without purchasing any additional HVAC equipment. The energy saving opportunity was in excess of $144,000. The payback was less than 2.2 years, fully funded. Now, the GSA was so pleased with that study that you may have seen this before. They've included it in their Sustainability Matters document. I have submitted some of those for the committee in just an excerpt form to show you. On page 94 to 99, it is the center of their Bible going forward on how they achieve green and high-performance buildings. The President has placed a priority on this. Congress recently passed $4.5 billion in a stimulus for energy conservation. We can achieve that in a very simplistic format, and I'll tell you, if the GSA just wanted to do all their federal buildings, they'd spend less than $40 million and save approximately $60 million a year. And that's the bottom line, just to give you how much of this is available. I'll give you another example. We recently partnered with a big box retailer in the city of Chicago. Chicago's got some of the strictest building codes in the country as far as ventilation is required. The major retailer couldn't meet their energy efficiency goals and achieve their indoor air quality goals at the same time. They used our PureTrack data and the city gave them a variance on the ventilation rate, and they were able to cut ventilation by over 54%, but because they were able to electronically prove that they matched the indoor air quality guidelines of the code, that 54% averaged into $2,500 a month per store in real-time savings. They didn't disqualify the indoor air quality of the building, and they met all the requirements of the code. Currently, the technology is being used by Tulsa University. It's being taught in the engineering program at Stout University. We have partnered with Secretary Chu's old company, Lawrence Berkeley Labs. We've done 3 school studies with them. Dr. Michael Apte has been our project partner out there. The study that we did in the schools found that the worse the air quality was in schools, the higher the absenteeism. For every 1,000 parts per million of carbon dioxide, absenteeism went up 10 to 20%. Minnesota Power and the Minnesota Department of Commerce had us do another program called Sample 2, School Air Monitoring Program for Learning and Energy Efficiency. We did 3 schools in Minnesota, and the findings averaged that 14% of the school, or we could save an average of 14% of energy conservation, which was approximately $30,000 per school. If we take that across what Senator Boxer has proposed, we'd save in excess of $580 million annually using 2003 energy numbers on all the public schools in this country. This technology works. We're here today talking about how do we do energy efficiency. You need to measure the performance of the building, and we can turn everything else around. We've got some suggestions. I look forward to your questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.